Hi, Roberta. You're good. We have
Roberta, we're very sorry if we gave you flashbacks. We didn't mean to have everybody walk into the school committee meeting.
Kidding.
Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Davis Thayer Building Reuse Advisory Committee. I will read now the section that I am supposed to the residents. All citizens are welcome to attend public board and committee meetings in person. Meetings are also live streamed and archived by Franklin TV on the Franklin Town Hall TV YouTube channel. This meeting will also be shown live and on repeat on Comcast Channel 8 and Verizon Channel 28. In an effort to maximize citizens' engagement opportunities, citizens are welcome to participate remotely via phone or Zoom. The link to access the meeting via Zoom for the November 28th meeting of the Davis Thayer Building Reuse Advisory Committee meeting is here. Zoom link, and it'll say here, then click open Zoom. Or copy and paste this URL into your browser and call in phone number, call 1-929-205-6099 and enter meeting ID hashtag 845-3540-7365, then press the, well, I should have said pound key before, the pound key. Please be sure to include your name in order to be identified and let into the meeting. You will automatically be muted upon entering the meeting. In order to speak, you will need to raise your hand on the Zoom platform and request to be unmuted. I hope everyone got that, and hopefully you won't have any problems. Okay, do we have many people that have signed in here? No, I don't see any up on the top there. No. Okay, good enough. Okay, we're here this evening to once again discuss the Davis Thayer and the reuse of it. This is probably our fifth or sixth meeting that we've had. And we've got a lot of good ideas from different people, and hopefully we're going to be able to get all of these together and see what the best use for this beautiful building is going to be. Well, I think tonight we'll begin with the town administrator. Updates to give us the expression of interest that you have received any, or what's the story?
So thank you. So through you, Madam Chair, the town attorney has been starting to work on drafting it, and we anticipate the expression of interest it legally needs to be authorized by the full council. So you've already voted to do this. As you would expect, you know, Mark has a lot of questions and he's working through it. This is a pretty unique expression of interest. And so we anticipate, based on my calendar, it'll probably be on the council agenda in probably the second or third meeting in January. And we'll probably put it out for about 3 months. So we'll put it out for a long period of time. And you want that. That's the same thing we did with the church on Washington Street. We left it open for a long time. And I'll say the main reason why we were able to get even one applicant interested is because, I think, as you remember, Madam Chair, WGBH ran a story on the church. And that broadcasted out to a lot more folks. And we'll be trying to do the same thing with this, to try to tell the story of the 100th anniversary, as I think we talked about at the last meeting, to try to get at least a little bit of media out there. And we have to leave some time for housing developers or businessmen or other folks to try to, you know, come up with a concept of what they think they could do with the property. So this one's gonna take a little longer. It'll go, again, before the council, probably in mid to late January is my guess. Yeah.
Okay.
And it'll probably be wide open, you know, all the way through spring, right? So it'll take a little bit of time.
Okay, we're certainly not in a hurry to do anything
No.
right now, so we want to get as many people that are interested to get back to us and
Yeah.
give us their ideas.
There have been phone calls. I've gotten calls from out-of-town housing developers. I've gotten calls from a few handful that have started hearing about the school, probably through other channels, and just kind of curious as to what might be going on. I've pointed them to the committee meetings on YouTube, and suggested they sign up for our email notification lists so that they'll be aware of when the expression of interest goes out. You know, they're at least signed up for the right emails and stuff like that. So it's starting to percolate a little. I think it was right after the open houses.
A little bit. You know, at this time, I'd like to ask any of the committee members, have you got any calls or correspondence or thoughts from people on the outside? No?
Not yet.
No?
Were there any
Yes.
responses?
All right, well, we'll mention it. What?
Oh, no, go ahead.
Tim?
Thank you, Daisy.
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 We changed each
Yeah,
other's.
we did. It's legal and it's formal. No, thank you, Madam Chair. I mean, I think the people that have reached out to me are just reiterating what we've already been talking about. I've heard from several members of the arts community that would like to see the space somehow saved and repurposed as an arts center, community center. I've heard from other folks who have said, you know, it's a great asset, you know, have you heard anything from Dean? Have you heard anything from housing developers? And I said, no, not yet, because the expression of interest has to go out, and then people will have time to, you know, put something more formal together. So, you know, like, a lot of the conversation has been very informal, but I'm encouraged that people are talking about it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people actually talked to me walking around the open house, and, you know, had ideas as they were looking at the beautiful library and looking at the windows and all the details, and just kind of thinking through what the space could be.
Anyone else like to add something?
In the sign-in sheet, wasn't there gonna be a little slash column off to the side, a comment, possibly?
Did we
on
get
the
that
sign-in
sign, the
sheet
sign-up sheets put together?
Yeah,
I was just curious on if there were any comments for the reuse itself, that's all. If anybody had written any down.
I don't believe there was anything, we have the sheets in the office and we'll take another look at them. I don't believe there was anything on there that was something that the committee hadn't already talked about.
Okay.
Various iterations too of more programs for kids and, you know, what about a brewery, you know, stuff that we've kind of kicked around, I think, at least conceptually, but, you know, I think it's more out of, that would be really fun to have, right? I'm sure people can see the cornhole tournaments right now out on the lawn with a brewery there or something like that, but nothing. But, and then someone else did alert, a couple of other people did alert us to some other issues on the roof and on one of the walls and stuff like that, so the facilities department has looked at those, but we'll take a look at the sheets, and at our next meeting, we'll bring them in and see if there's anything else that was different.
Oh, thank you, I just didn't know if anything of substance came up,
Yeah.
that's all.
Yeah, that's good, that's good.
Thank you.
Madam Chair? Thank you. It would seem to me, though, until we get some requests or interests, we're not going to know. We can keep talking about all of these things that we've talked about for the last, 2 months, 3 months. But until we hear from someone as to what they might want to do, because at the end of that, we might be going back to the drawing board because we didn't find anything that came about that was of substance, or we might have our answer. So although I understand that it takes time to get these out, I'm a little disappointed that it seems to be taking so long. But as we said, we're not in a hurry, so spring will come and hopefully we'll have some requests,
Yeah.
some interest.
I'd like to just make the decision to preserve the building and start the preservation efforts now. so people know that the decision's been made.
Well, I don't think we're at a point that we could do something like that.
No.
We
But-
could recommend it.
Yeah, but it's, right. I think probably even at our next meeting, we would be able to talk about the committee members, what they thought was best to do. But for us to really push for something like that, yeah,
Yeah.
now it's a little too soon.
I mean,
Sure.
This is a question to the town administrator. Is it possible in its current state that that building be used for anything while we're waiting to repurpose it? Or is it in such a state that it's uninhabitable?
I don't think it's about uninhabitable. I think it's about, we'd have to commence a separate process, which, you know, necessarily isn't, you know, it's something we can do. But I think maybe, like I was saying in a different meeting, you'd have to lease it to someone who would be exempt from ADA. And, you know, we'd have to have a public process to do that.
But like if the Park and Rec Department wanted to do programming there now, could they? Or is the
Technically,
building
they
in such
could,
a
'cause it's
state
owned-
that we couldn't have people in there?
Well, I mean, Park and Rec may not be the best example, because I don't think, you know, we'd have to have kids be able to get into the building, and I know that they can get to the first floor, but,
Yeah.
you know, we'd have to, no.
They can't, you can't get up to the upper floors or the basement, so
Right.
you'd be restricting access by the public to, AAB in Massachusetts requires the public access, or not employee access, but ADA does require employee access. You wouldn't be subject to that unless someone filed a suit, but, by law, when you inhabit a building, it's supposed to be compliant, and if you're changing the use from an educational use to some other use, a business use for the town, you have to comply with the AAB.
But couldn't we just keep it registered as a school for now and use it for educational purposes, which I think recreational programs would be considered, at least for the short term? Just asking, because
I don't know that recreational, if they're under the town auspices, they'd be considered part of the education department.
I mean, I think, I guess it'd be a lot of work. We'd have to really know somebody would wanna do it, and then if we knew somebody really wanted to use it, we could look into it at that point. I think otherwise, you know, we gotta get the building commissioner involved to make a determination on the use issue. We did record the deed as municipally owned property when the school, you know, disposed of the property. It's just a lot of logistical hurdles. And I think and this isn't at all, this is a comment for the record, not necessarily a response to the question, but we were also forgetting that a main reason why the building was closed is because it was a facility that was not adequate for educating children.
Right,
right.
And
right.
having more children in seems to go against why we closed it as a school to begin with. Yes, declining enrollment was also a factor, but really, it was really due to the insufficient nature of the building for educational use. But to the point a minute ago, I mean, we'd have to look in with the building commissioner and the town attorney whether or not you could lease it to a nonprofit, a separate entity, maybe because they're exempt from ADA in a lot of cases, so there might be some other way to do that. Then the rumor mill starts, oh, well, they're in there, they must be getting the building, you know, so
Yeah.
you'd have to think through, I think, all of that type of stuff, you know, before we're able to open it up. And then we as a municipality would have to be at least on the hook to make sure the building was, if someone was using, say, 3 rooms, you know, we'd have to make sure the facility is adequate for those uses. If it's like a lawyer or a, you know, accountant or something, you know, it may be a lot more headache than what it's worth.
And then for heat and electricity and that, wouldn't it cost us quite a bit? Because I don't know what kind of zones are there, through you to Mike. I mean, could we just open up certain areas, like one floor?
No.
No, so that would be expensive for us then to do.
We're paying about $150,000 a year right now out of the town budget to keep, well, you know, I mean, it's a lot, but
It's a lot of money.
it's.
Thought it was
also-
100.
Well, I'm adjusting for inflation, kind of, I'm
the new
ballparking
year.
about
It's a new
150,000.
year.
That's a big,
Oh,
that's a big
Next year it'll
bump.
be 300, current trends. You know, it's not that much money to preserve an asset of that magnitude. I think the discussion points, which will come up on number 2, do you want to keep the building or not? And do you want to keep the land or not? And those are decisions that kind of chart at least the future of whether you're going to restrict the property and you have to keep the building or not. Because if you don't keep the building, I don't think I need to say this again, but you know, it opens up a lot more opportunity. Also owning the land, as Greg's brought up numerous times, there's some people that don't want us to sell the land. But also hanging on to it for 15 years. That's when that expense that you brought up, Ted, every year you're paying, well then now you're starting to lose money, right, after a while.
Yeah.
Where those expenses do pile up. So at some point, the town's gonna have to decide whether to sell it or not sell it.
And I only brought up the issue of possibly using it for something, because if an expression of interest isn't even gonna get approved by the council until January, and you're talking about 3 months to have it out there, and then you're talking about the spring, then we're really looking at like 6 months from now of it just sitting there on top of the 2 plus almost 3 years now that it's just been sitting there. So I was just trying to think like, okay, is there something that we could do in the interim? Because we have, I think, various groups in town that would like to use it for, whether it be for, you know, the Art Association has expressed interest in at least having a space to create, and if it wasn't a huge expense to us more than we're already paying, which we're already paying to heat it, we're already paying to have the electricity, and we're already paying to insure it, so it might be slightly higher to make it comfortable, but I don't know. It just seems like kind of silly to just have the thing sit there for another 6 months plus of doing nothing. But
There are some schools, as I think I've said before, that have been sitting around for 20 years. And it's tough to see, but some towns just leave them. Because there is no, every town gets caught in this pickle, right? We don't want to knock the building down. It's in the center of town. We don't want to lose the history.
Declining enrollment, but you never know when the enrollment's gonna go up.
We're never gonna know when the enrollment's gonna go back up. And, you know, sometimes, and I think that the desire, I will say, in the community seems to be one thing, is to not do that. Is to just sit here forever hoping something happens, but, you know, we can, you know, if you wanted to lease the building, you'd have to do some sort of bid. And so you'd have to do another procurement just to lease the building. So we can do that, but that's a long process. Procurement sounds easy. The reason why this is gonna take months to write is this stuff is really complicated. The selection criteria you use, I mean, the state laws and bid list and the protest laws and everything with this type of stuff, you have to make sure every single I is dotted correctly and every T is crossed correctly. There can be no errors at all. So if we're gonna lease it out and the committee wants to entertain that, that's a whole separate lane than the expression of interest. You can't commingle the two.
Can you do both?
You can do both. And certainly I'll talk to Mark about any exemptions that we could get in statute, but I don't think there would be one
No.
for a general lease, right? For a general lease, it's just open to the public and the highest bidder gets it. We'd have to define the space that could be leased. You know, these 3 rooms at that square footage, right?
Yeah.
We'd have to really define what we were gonna use. It wouldn't be able to be the whole building. So you'd have to say the basketball gym, well, then you're in the ADA problems, so. Could use the cafeteria maybe for something, cause it's right inside the front door, but are there any dangers in there too?
I don't think so, but,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a big space either.
Right.
And right now, we are keeping, I mean, we're keeping heat in it, but we're not really, we're keeping it at 50.
Just through the chair, to Mike, if it was leased out to another person, how much do you think it would take for facilities in town to get it to that level of leasability in terms of the mechanical systems, the electric systems, et cetera? I know it's a loaded question, but it's gotta be thrown out there, and I know the answer, I just wanna make sure everybody else understands the answer.
Yeah, we haven't studied that.
Okay.
It wasn't part of our charge to study that.
Yeah.
So, we did a review of an update of the existing conditions of the original study. We're to look at, with discussion, some possible uses and pros and cons, and that was the extent of our work. We haven't done anything in terms of reviewing renovation costs or anything like that, or doing any kind of formal estimates.
Yeah, or getting it to a point where it could be
Mhm.
subleased, and Mike may be able to knows the building a little better.
But I did look at, because we have that, the accessibility study from 2013, and I escalated that at 3.5% a year for 10 years. That's really conservative, because right now we're looking at, since the pandemic, anywhere between 12 and 14% per year, but I did it just at 3.5%. And the cost to make it accessible right now would be about $4.5 million, just to make it accessible.
Does that include the
See,
elevator?
That includes the
It's
elevator.
a lot of money.
That's why I wanted people to hear it.
Hear that, yeah.
Okay.
I get it.
But that doesn't include structural stability in case it is a use that requires a category 4, municipal use, or any kind of HVAC or electrical or fire protection upgrades that would be required for occupancy. That's just to make it accessible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. This was helpful.
I'm against it, you know, set.
You're all set?
Madam Chair, thank you. Just to follow up on a couple points, I think the other thing to think about too is, unless there's a demand or need from a town organization, leasing it isn't gonna be a net positive number in any way, shape, or form. The expenses are gonna exceed it,
Exactly.
particularly when you cut down the square footage that would be available.
Right.
And you think about going rates for leased area and the space, you're still not gonna make money. So if there's a need to use the building for a department that exists, that would use it, for free, we still have the cost to heat and electric, that's fine, but we're not making any money if we lease this building out to anybody for a short period of time. And it's very likely not even an offset, because we have to increase those costs, and then we have further costs, insurance, et cetera, so our expenses are gonna increase regardless.
I personally, first of all, someone had mentioned about maybe it being used for a school again. If our population goes up, what's gonna happen if that ever happened? The school would be knocked down, because the state, they won't give us money, just as they didn't for the high school. We had to tear the whole thing down, so that means this would have to come down,
No.
and we're losing. Why not?
No, the high school didn't have to come down either, right?
No, it did.
No, it didn't. We were the designers up until a certain phase of that, but when the town decided to go with a model school program, which is a new school,
Yeah.
then you had to rip down the school. But the MSBA requires that when you're doing the 3 parts in the beginning of the study up to schematic design, that's the feasibility study part of the work, that you have to look at a repair, which isn't allowed by them because they don't just repair buildings. A repair, you have to look at a renovation, which repairs the building, but also brings it up to the standards of educational use, which is right-side classrooms, right-side stairs, that kind of thing. You have to look at a renovation addition option, and you have to look at a new school option. And you have to present all 3, at least those 3 options to the MSBA and to the town to choose which one they want to do. You could always renovate the school.
We could have renovated the high school, you're
Oh,
saying?
absolutely. We had an option to renovate the high
All
school.
right, let me ask another question. And then we could have kept the field house?
Yeah. If you'd renovated.
These are all new things that are
We-
being said now that
we had
doesn't make
plans-
me very happy.
I don't wanna go through that. We had plans to renovate the school and keeping the field house, yes. Or doing a new school that attaches to the field house, yes.
You
But
saved
none
a
of them.
lot of money by making the choice you did.
You
Exactly.
get
A
I was
lot.
just gonna say,
Extra
that's,
5% reimbursement by going with a model school.
exactly, of course. How much money did we get for that? It was huge.
It was a huge amount.
Yeah.
That's
And the
why we
overall
did it.
cost was
Right.
Came in lower than what was anticipated.
Exactly.
much lower.
Yeah, the MSBA will not pay to repair a school.
I get
The
you.
MSBA will pay to renovate a school, to renovate and add to a school, or to build a new school.
Right.
But you have to, all of those are options on the table. You could renovate Davis Thayer and have it as a viable school. When we did our original study back in 2013, we thought that that was not possible because you needed to add an elevator, and the elevator was going to be an outside construction to the building because of the way the structure of the building is arranged. So that automatically became a renovation addition project, which is perfectly viable under the MSBA.
It's good to know, okay. Any other questions on this part? No? Okay, so next we have, let's see here. B is appraisal. Jamie?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, really quickly, we met with the Board of Assessors and the purchasing staff a couple weeks ago. We believe that the appraisal, based on current zoning, with the building, we're gonna get that appraisal done. We think we can do it for under $10,000, which is key, which means we'll be able to go out and solicit sound business practices where we can get 3 quotes. Pam Vickery is now doing that work, so we should have an appraiser on by the end of the calendar year. And then that person will probably take about 2 months, roughly, in January and February to do the property appraisal. So that part's moving forward too.
Good, okay. Any questions on that? Okay, let's go to C, Castle Boo's study.
Yep,
And-
I just didn't know if you guys might get an update on their work.
Yeah, so there's a lot of assumptions in this. But Joe did look at something for a basic construction cost to just, like, look at the size of the building and look at using assumptions, the 3.5 escalation, pandemic things that have happened that are really hard to do, but Reynolds would be above and beyond what he did. So basically, you got like a 4,500 square foot building, and to do with the totally unknown renovation cost, this is just based on square footage costs, which today are like incredible, but if you were talking police, you'd be looking at least 35 million plus an unknown renovation cost, which could be another 20 or 30 million dollars.
So 30, 65-ish.
So he looked at it as a rec center as well, and used a slightly lower, $600 per square foot. And that still brought it up to 31 million plus the renovation costs, which is that, again, would be, 20, 30 million dollars more, just to make it livable, accessible. He looked at it as a gallery, that it would be, something for art, and he put a number on that at about 550 per square foot. That brings you to just under 29 million, and another
Renovation.
20 million or so to do things with that. And then senior housing, slightly lower square foot cost, but that still came out to 27 million plus unknown renovations costs, which could be another 20.
And just to say that the baseline cost were numbers given to me by one of our estimators that we use as current numbers per square foot numbers that he's seen for new construction. The reason we did new construction is because using renovated construction numbers that will differ from project to project. There's no constant in there. You're renovating a part of the building, all of the building. Small renovation, it costs more per square foot than it does in a large renovation per square foot. So we decided to use new building numbers just to give us a baseline cost, what it costs to have a building of that building type. And then we added on to that the accessibility numbers and the renovation costs that would be necessary for that. And the numbers that we have are construction-only numbers. They're not total building cost numbers, so you'd have to add on, usually have, if you do an estimated cost, you have a number at the top, that's the construction cost, the rough construction cost, and below that you have, you know, acquisition costs and designer fees and building permit fees, escalation, contingencies, all those sorts of things that are below the line that add another, you know, 40–50% of the cost of a project. So this is just construction cost, but it wouldn't be the total project cost at all. We'd have to do a baseline estimate with an opinion of probable cost to get to that number. But because the renovation cost is such a variable, and if we don't have those, you know, detailed estimates to judge what that would be, doing that kind of opinion of probable cost right now would be baseless.
Mm-hmm.
This is just to give you an idea of comparative relative numbers between the different uses and what one might cost more than another based on the per square foot numbers you have for new construction. So police station is the most expensive, the senior housing was the least expensive, rec and
Right.
gallery, art gallery stuff was in the middle.
Right.
Interesting, okay.
Looking at it as senior housing or any kind of housing, did you estimate about how many people you would get into?
We didn't do any test bits, we didn't do any programming.
Okay.
That wasn't part of our charge.
It feels like it'd be $1 million per person to get housing units in there, which is cumbersome.
And
I would say almost impossible for the private market right now.
Yeah.
Right? You guys all work in
And like when you have,
You have to be
like
pretty
with Joe,
fast.
just so everybody, I mean,
So-
Franklin High School was actually, the construction cost of Franklin High School, the contract we had with Agostini Construction was in the 70-something, $75 million. The project cost brought it up to $104
Right.
Yeah.
million.
Yeah.
So there's, I mean, everything that goes in a building. And schools have that type of computers and, you know, technology, furniture, everything that goes into a school or any building you're building, really. Senior center, there's a big chunk of money on the other end there, just to make it a place, to make it what you wanted it to be.
Right, this is just a raw construction number.
Got it.
And all these numbers are based on prevailing wage, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, yeah.
they're
This is
higher,
the-
a
this
little
is
bit
an
higher than they
estimator
would for
we use a
private.
lot, and we only do, you know, public projects, so everything we do is prevailing wage. Anything the town does, it's, as a municipal building, would be prevailing wage.
which is a 30–35% markup from private rates roughly. It's a lot,
Always has been.
always has been. Yep.
Which is what schools right now are costing between $850 and $1,000 a square foot.
I think the state is finally seeing I thought it would be a few more years down the road, but nope, they're looking at a $500 million school
Yeah, Brockton.
in Andover. So we were thinking of different towns, but
Brockton is up there, yes.
$500 million for a school building.
They talk billions the way we used to talk billions.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
You know, it's crazy. It really is. Okay. Any other concerns of that
I
you'd
have
like to check with
I have a
Joe?
question, if we're into number 2, I have a question.
Sure, go right ahead.
And this is again just throwing spaghetti at a wall, right? But our friends at Dean have a parking problem. They don't have enough spots for the number of kids, right? Without talking about the building and about the huge amount of money, just talking the outside. Maybe to make a little bit of money and to be, or even just to be a good neighbor, does it make any sense to offer, because it can't be forever, but possibly short-term, those parking spaces to Dean, which could be at a cost on the Davis Dare property?
Superb question. So oftentimes right now, we are a good neighbor. Dean will call me often and ask for access to the parking lot on homecoming, student orientation, families come, family weekend, you know, these kind of larger events, and we let cars park there, we let the chief and the police know, so we're a pretty good neighbor most of the, you know, all year whenever they ask for that, if we can do it. We have, if they were to use it for the parking problem, they actually are the problem on this one. They don't offer freshmen the ability to drive their own cars to campus. So the problem they have right now are freshmen or kids who have not paid the fee or whatever for the parking space.
Right.
So even if we were to allow them, which I'm sure that folks would be willing to do that, I think they have a problem because I think those students then can't have cars on campus for whatever reason. I've never been able to fully understand it. I thought maybe it was like an NCAA ruling or something, or like, you know, some collegiate. I think it's just a general,
Typical freshman.
Yeah, typical.
I think it's just a
Yeah.
general,
Most freshmen can't
colleges
have
don't
cars.
usually
Yeah.
allow
Just can't do
freshmen
it.
to have
Freshmen.
cars on
Right.
campus.
Don't have cars.
Yeah, I
Right.
think it's,
It's
I
pretty
don't think it's
much
like a
a
law or anything. I think
generalization,
it's just
no.
like a,
Is it because they don't have room?
it's probably like liability, or they, I think
A
they
lot of
have
col-
room.
A
They
lot of
actually have.
colleges don't allow freshmen.
Most
Yeah.
colleges don't.
Oh,
Yeah,
all
most-
colleges.
They want them
My
there
kids
for a
went,
reason,
They never could park.
not to go out, so that's the whole.
But they
Well,
have
there
a
you
lot,
go.
but they have a large commuter
Yeah.
population at
Right.
Dean.
Just about every.
They do,
college
and
does it.
the parking problem is literally isolated to this one issue. Other than that, they've got more than enough parking everywhere on campus.
Okay.
I think everybody knows this. If you drive by the campus or you go there, doesn't it always feel like there's open parking spots like almost all around Dean? I mean, there's a lot of parking, so.
But don't you think it would help some of the other complaints that we get from
Neighbors.
residents and
Yeah.
abutters if we were to say to Dean, instead of your students parking on the public streets and risking getting a ticket, we would now let you use, you know, Davis there even on the short term. I'm just trying to think
No,
through,
it-
like, you know, it seems to me like that might help some of our residents that continue to call us with problems about the college kids taking up the space in front of their house on all those abutting streets.
If Dean would allow those freshmen to have cars and to give them a permit, I think we could probably do something with them. But I don't think they're willing to do that. I think that's the issue.
Is it a worthwhile discussion for you to explore with Ken Elmore to see if there is any interest?
Yeah, I can easily do that.
Okay, all right.
I would, you know, it's a very, very low probability, but I'll certainly corroborate it with
Oh.
them and just ask them, but,
You know,
I think if they could have done it, we probably would have already entered into this discussion already. I think it's whatever the issue is with freshman parking, but I'll talk to him about it and
Yeah.
get a final.
Has
and get a
Dean
final answer.
mentioned anything at all about the Davis Thayer School?
No, but I think everybody, like I said at the last meeting, I think it's common. I think if they were not interested in it, I'd be more shocked.
Yeah,
they're just waiting for the expression.
I think they're just waiting for the expression of
They'll
interest to
get-
go
and
out.
they'll turn
And they'll
something
show
in.
us whatever their vision might be for the property.
I did get a letter from a resident here in town stating that his thought was to use the Davis Thayer for the police station and then divide the land and put in an apartment complex on the side of it, and then there would be plenty of parking there. Whether I agree or not, it doesn't make any sense, but that was his thought. So I have taken his letter in, and that will be part of our correspondence for the
Okay.
minutes.
Sure.
Okay, did anybody else receive anything?
No.
No, even phone calls.
Not yet.
All right. If you do happen to get a phone call on that, just log it, you know, from who it is and, you know, their thoughts, just so that at the end of this committee, we'll be able to say that we did have some people that called or sent letters or did something, okay? We don't want someone to come afterward and say, well, I sent this or I called and nobody said anything. Roberta?
Yes, thank you. Do you suppose that that resident was present or listened to the meeting where the chief came in and explained some of the reasons why?
Well, I did call,
Okay.
So, and he said,
Because he can
yes,
always
did.
watch it on review.
Yeah, he
Okay.
said he watches the
Okay.
meetings and
Okay.
that, so this is just his thought, so.
Okay.
And that's his
Well, as long as
prerogative.
he's been educated and he understands that and listened to him, then that's his opinion.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions on any of this A, B, or C? You can go back to them if you have to, or you have concerns, or,
I just have one quick question.
Sure.
And this goes to Jamie. Going back to my comments, splitting into two parcels. Is
Yeah.
it possible to have the appraisal done with parcel A, parcel B? Leave one piece out on the backside of School Street for future use, or both for future use, just in case, so we always have a piece of property in our back pocket?
It's a great question. It's one that came up on our internal meeting, getting ready for the appraisal. Everybody felt more comfortable doing that type of piece of an appraisal with other unique assumptions like zoning after the original appraisal with what's there is done. So once the 3.5 acres and the building appraisals are done, I can tell you from zoning, I'm pretty sure it's single family 4, right? Thanks, Sam. No housing developer is gonna buy it with that zoning on it. I mean, they would maybe, but obviously they're looking to get a more dense project. So we talked about all of those scenarios, and then the Board of Assessors really came back to getting the baseline appraisal done for the property first. See what that comes out with, and then after that, maybe use a series of different assumptions, like different zoning, splitting up the properties, maybe making it more multi-use, and different things like that. We would do a second appraisal or a follow-up appraisal if needed for that type of idea. But I think that that's a common question, Greg, that people are asking about.
Thank you.
thank you, Dave.
And there is part of a building under the back. You've been in town long enough to know that that was just,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
knocked
Yeah.
into the foundation and then covered over with dirt. So over the years,
So
we
this is a
just
secret building?
Secret.
always go back there and
Oh, that's-
fill the
that's
holes
good.
as they open up and make it safe again. And
We're gonna call it an ADU, Sam.
Yeah, well, that may change things for a developer, if they go this way.
ADU,
There you go.
basement.
Hey, I'm not
An
opposed,
ADU,
I'm
Jamie.
not opposed to like catacomb tours.
Yeah.
They do them in Paris, they make a lot of money. People go underground and they look at that disgusting stuff. People might do it.
Oh, brother.
Debbie.
Debbie, real quick.
Tim,
Don't oh brother me, every idea's a good idea, come on.
oh, goodness. All right, I don't know really what to say now. Jamie, it looks
Just-
like we've gone through everything that we had to for tonight, and
Chris has a question. Deb.
Just one thing, I know that Jamie already discussed it, but I'm happy to offer my help with the scope of work, given my job
Appreciate
for the
it.
appraisal, so.
Oh, wow.
Could I just get everybody's, point in a second, we did some open houses, Madam Chair. They went really well, there's a lot of people that came through. We'll have another meeting in December, which we should schedule, but maybe just taking a straw poll right now and finding out where everybody stands on what they think of where we're at after 5-6 meetings. We may not have all the information we want, but we've all gotten a lot of information. We've gotten some numbers tonight. We got another 5 weeks before the committee dissolves. I'm just wondering where people are generally at right now. I know we're gonna wait for the appraisal, we'll wait for, but,
my suggestion would be that we wait until the next meeting, because
Okay.
I think I said that at the beginning.
Oh, sure,
Think
okay.
about, what we would like to do with the school, or what we're able to do with the school, and with funds and all. People have no idea out in the outside world there, that they think they can just have, for the cultural council. Well, they don't realize that all those renovations are gonna take the town to pay for them. They think that it's just gonna happen.
Yeah.
And it's not going to. So if we can talk about that part of it on the agenda, if you put
We will.
a line item there, that we can see what everybody thinks, and it'll give you enough time now for next month. Roberta, you had something?
Just
Fantastic.
a thought based on what you just asked, Jamie. So our charge was to get back to the town council to give them ideas, and one of them was that we would have this appraisal done, and that we would then put out an expression of interest, and at that point, they will be the ultimate deciders on what goes on. So I guess what I'm looking for is direction of this committee, other than to sort of rehash that which we have already spoken about. What is it that we are looking to do until we get those pieces of information, the appraisal and the interest? I'm not sure what else there is to do. Sure, we could bring up about the cost of it and how that would impact the town budget, and how, you as counselors know better than anyone what that budget looks like. So I guess I'm trying to understand where we go from here. And because you mentioned that it would only be 5 weeks or so before the committee was dissolved, if you will, or something to that effect. I know it said December, correct? Wasn't
did,
that our
yep.
original goal?
Yeah, it did say
Okay.
December. It did
So are
say-
we at a point where we feel we've done the work of what the charge was, and we're ready to pass it on to the town council, or not?
I don't think we are at that point, that we're ready to pass it on to the council yet. I mean, you're coming up with estimates and all of that, and we need those before we can even think about it, to give a report.
Sure.
So,
I think that's.
do we have to go now back to the council and
Yeah.
say that we need an extension?
Yep.
You know?
Yep. Which isn't really that hard.
No,
I mean,
no.
It's a pretty easy thing to do.
Yeah.
Where do you have three
And if the
votes
group-
right here?
Well,
I'm
hopefully 3. They,
Maybe.
maybe. I mean, if you want to ask for an extension, I'm sure the council will do it. And it's really up to this group whether you want to continue on doing that. Roberta's right. I think part of the issue, in all transparency, is just we're overloaded with stuff to do.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
And I know you know that, Roberta. I know it's not it's just, these things are hard and complicated. They take a lot of thought. People are out sick, illnesses, family, it's just life. So if folks want to extend it, I think you just have to have another deadline. And I think to Roberta's question or point, I think you'd have to have synthesized meetings with defined, deadlines, if you will, decision-making points.
Roberta
Thank you.
still has the
Thank you.
thoughts,
Do
yeah.
we need to maybe take a hiatus so we get an extension? We understand that the work hasn't been done for all the reasons that you mentioned, Jamie, and we ask that because there's no point meeting every month if there isn't something new to discuss. However, if we take a hiatus and regroup once we get the answers to some of these questions, which is no one's fault that it's taking this long,
Right,
it is what
right.
it is, and then we go forward from there. To me, that would seem a reasonable thing to do.
I think that makes sense too. What about anybody else? Yeah, Ted, you have your hand.
Oh, sure. I was actually going to say something very similar, Roberta, that I think it's kind of silly to have a December meeting if we don't have the expressions of interest back yet, because
Agree.
the figures that were shared with us by these nice gentlemen are just hypothetical. They were just,
Exactly.
these are possible figures for possible projects with possible renovations. Well, that, as much as I appreciate it, it's not really concrete data on a particular, project or moving forward that we can recommend to anybody. So I think the expression of interest is in the town attorney's hands to work on. I would like to see it get out as soon as possible, but I understand things take time. And then I think whatever that deadline is set for those responses, then during that hiatus, as you mentioned, Roberta, we're just, rather than wasting everybody's time, we're just on pause. And then we're gonna regroup. It would take the council extending the charge of this group, which I don't think is that big a deal, right? And then in the spring, when we actually have hopefully a whole lot of proposals from various groups, then we can actually roll our sleeves up and get into some stuff, and then these guys could actually run some figures based on that, and we'd have a much clearer direction of what
Yep.
people are thinking. I mean, these meetings have been good because they have been idea generating, and we've heard from a lot of people, but I do think we're at that point that it's like, what would we come together and discuss in December that we haven't already talked about?
Exactly.
Christmas.
Yeah, well, I'd rather go with you, Pat, for a drink and talk about Christmas. But anyway,
No,
that's
true.
just my thoughts.
Okay, so perhaps what we need to do is not have a meeting in December, and January, you will have the interest.
Expression of
Going on.
interest will go before the council in January.
In
If, you know, all
January.
goes according to plan. And the reason why January too, by the way, is because we will not have it ready for December 20th,
Right.
which is your next council
Right.
meeting.
Right.
And then on January 3rd, you have to go through your goals, your work plan for the year.
Right.
You do
Right.
that every
So
year
we're
on the
not gonna
first
be able to
meeting.
do it then.
Right, so we may be able to put it on that agenda, but I know there's some other stuff, so I just gotta kind of weigh it out, you know. We try to make it so that you guys aren't there until midnight every night, right, so.
That's fine.
So I'm looking at like probably the second or third meeting in January. And what we can do is ask for the council for an extension through the end of June probably, for the committee if you want. And
I
then
think the end of June is a good
maybe
day.
we'll call everybody back together when the appraisal
Yep.
or the expression, and we'll communicate with folks when those things are in process or done.
So when are we thinking that? February? February, March?
It's a great question. For all of us who probably, yeah, I would imagine so. I would imagine probably February. Yeah.
February. Okay.
But I'll let everybody know obviously when the expression of interest is on the council agenda.
Yeah,
Um,
we should
People
know
will
that.
know
You know,
that way.
So we can go.
You know, that can be another time.
Okay. Go right ahead.
Just a question, are we still doing the January open house?
Oh, there's one scheduled?
I thought there was talk of having it for like the college kids.
Oh.
We
when
did,
they were
we
back.
did
We
talk
did
brought
talk
up
about
as
it.
an
We didn't
idea
bring a
for
date.
kids that came
Yeah.
home.
You're right, we brought it up, but we didn't set a date.
Yeah, no, I just am raising
Yeah.
the question. I don't know if that's gonna make a big difference or if we should abandon that idea.
I think what you're gonna get in an open house, which is, I'm not saying it's bad, it's just kids are gonna run around and have their memories of where they were in classrooms. I think that's what we saw, right, at the open house.
We saw, but they
Most
truly,
people were
truly
there.
enjoyed being in the school.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
selfies aplenty.
And you know who enjoyed it even more? The parents rather than kids, because certainly they didn't go, yeah, some of them could have gone to the school, but the parents, oh, I remember this, I remember that.
Yeah.
So is this something we want to do with the college kids coming home?
I don't think the college kids are gonna go there, I think, oh, the college kids who went to
That went to
there.
school there, yeah.
The alumni.
How much trouble
The
is
alumni.
Can I ask a question though,
Yeah.
Jamie?
Yeah.
What was the cost
Yeah.
to the town for putting those open houses on? Because you did have to pay staff.
I don't think we did. It was just
We
us.
had a police officer.
We're just dedicated public servants. Who show up when our name is called.
So there wasn't anybody there that was hourly?
Jason
everybody
was, Lieutenant
salary?
Riley was there on regular time.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I don't think there was any other costs that I'm aware of, other than the coffee. But, you know, that was pretty, $100. Yeah.
That's negligible, I just,
Yeah. Yeah.
before we.
I just, the only thing I think is the holiday season, people are, you know, I think it's attractive, but we'd have to do it probably during the week. Just cause the holidays are on the weekends of that.
I know it.
Christmas is on, I think, a Monday,
It is.
Sunday or Monday. and-
Yeah.
Monday, Monday.
So you'd have to do it in the middle, probably in the middle of the week.
And do we think that there'll be enough that will be interested in coming?
Who knows?
It's only a thought, do we think? I don't know.
I won't be there.
I'll be away myself.
I would say that you're gonna end up having, except for the college kids, which, you're gonna end up doing another one as part of the expression interest, if not two. Those are pretty much required.
Yep.
So you're gonna end up doing more open houses.
So they can
It's
come
just
on
about,
spring
They
break.
it's just
So
about the
they-
college kids.
Yeah.
We-
Right.
Don't I-
If we serve beer,
I
I'm
just-
sure they'll show up. I don't know about
Do $9.
soft drinks.
Pizza?
So.
There you go.
So it's
I'll
something
tell you
we
what,
have to
if any
decide on
college
now.
students call you,
Yeah,
let us know, and we'll get them into the building so
There
they
you
can take
go.
photos.
There you
And then
go.
we'll wait for
That
the
solves
open
that
houses
issue.
for the
Yeah.
expressions of interest. And if someone needs to get in, you have a few connections, we could probably get somebody in
yeah.
to look at the, really, I mean, if.
All right, so
you know,
if we get any calls,
absolutely, if-
we'll send them over to you.
Yeah, and Mike and I and Kevin and us can coordinate. I'll be here that week, in between the holidays, so we'll coordinate with one of these folks and we'll be able to get people in.
That makes more sense, yeah.
That makes sense, okay.
We can do a
Madam Chair.
private tour. Debbie, you can be our tour guide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where, I think it was great that you brought that up,
Yeah.
okay? But I just don't know if it's gonna go over very
Yeah.
well, but we'll see.
Just
Yep.
wanted to ask the question.
We
But
wanna
most,
keep
I
everything
don't think most
happy.
college kids are that nostalgic except for
Yeah.
a couple I know.
We'll have to do it at noon after they wake up.
There you go.
Yeah.
Sounds like
Madam
Or when
Chair,
they're just coming in.
Or-
there you go.
Oh.
Thank you. Madam Chair, so to that point, if, also when we're on hiatus, it doesn't mean that constituents and residents can't either call or email any of us to have a great idea that might pop into their heads.
Right.
And to your point, Gwyneth, if there's any college students, we can put it out there on social media if you're interested.
Yeah.
Get in touch with either one of us or Jamie or whomever,
Absolutely.
and then we can take it from there, rather than, you know,
That's
just
not
schedule
leaving
it.
anyone out.
No, right, exactly.
That's
Pretty good attendance at those open houses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it wasn't bad.
There's a lot of people that came by.
Yeah,
It was great.
they enjoyed it, they enjoyed, and we did get rid of some of the desks and chairs,
We
which was
did.
good too,
They're at my house,
so.
Yeah. Thank you.
along
I
with
have
half the
one.
library.
Did any other committee members get any desks or
I
chairs?
am now the proud owner of a very small desk
Without a chair.
that I promised my children were not gonna use, and I said that day, and I lugged that thing home, and they haven't touched it once. But it's there, and it made Debbie happy that I took the thing out of the building, because she was
Well, I
really
have-
proud to see me carry it out and throw it in my car, so for that.
And he
I did
wasn't
it.
happy at all.
No,
And he
but
wasn't
I
happy.
did it, Debbie, and it's a
Back door.
piece of saved history, and it's in my attic. There you go. I did
And
it
she
for
gets
you.
some stuff at the History Museum too, right?
I had a teacher come into the school, and what she did and her husband, they took two of them. They didn't want the chairs, but I said, take the chairs anyway. And was gonna use them as end tables in a downstairs den.
Well, that's a good idea.
You know, for a school teacher, that's great. So I says, tell your friends about it.
You missed your calling at Jordan's.
Oh,
I think they're hiring for the holiday.
Oh, God. Oh, God. Okay, so if there is no further business or comments of any sort, and that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Right.
Opposed? We are set.
Happy holidays.
Recording
everybody.
stopped.
Yeah, happy holidays to
Right.
everyone.
Yeah.
We won't be meeting in December then, right?
Yeah.